I've been in pharmaceutical research for 24 years. I've watched projects get killed, budgets get cut, and good science get buried under bad politics. I've seen colleagues lose their jobs over things that had nothing to do with their work. I thought I'd seen everything. I hadn't seen anything yet. My name is Elliot Vance. I'm 49 years old, and until about 2 weeks ago, I was the lead research scientist at Nexagen Therapeutics. I'd been there for 3 years. Before that, I spent 2 decades at other labs doing variations of the same thing, trying to make fragile compounds survive long enough to actually do their job inside the human body. The problem sounds simple when you explain it at a dinner table. Pharmaceutical compounds break down fast. The moment they enter the bloodstream, they start falling apart. By the time they reach the tissue they're supposed to treat, a significant portion of the drug is already gone. That's part of why so many treatments cause side effects. The medication spreads everywhere instead of concentrating where it's needed. What I spent the last 3 years building at Nexagen was a stabilization platform designed to fix that. A delivery system that could keep those compounds chemically intact long enough to reach their target, whether that was a tumor, damaged tissue, or a specific receptor before activating. If it worked the way our early data showed, it had the potential to change how targeted therapies were delivered across an entire category of treatments. For Nexagen's investors, that translated into one thing: a very large market. That was why 6 people from Greystone Capital had flown across the country for the presentation. That was the entire foundation of the $2.6 billion commercialization agreement everyone in that boardroom thought they were about to approve. Gerard Harlow, Nexagen's CEO, had personally asked me to lead the pitch. He'd shaken my hand in the hallway the morning of the meeting and said the company was counting on me. At the time, I took that at face value. I shouldn't have. The boardroom was exactly the kind of space where decisions worth hundreds of millions of dollars get made. Glass walls, polished wood, chairs, designed to make powerful people feel comfortable taking risks. Adrian Weston, Greystone's lead partner, sat directly across from me. He was 57, former biotech analyst turned investor, the kind of person who stopped looking at his phone when the numbers on the screen actually meant something. I had just reached the stabilization phase, the most technically critical part of the presentation, when the door opened. Paige Harlow walked in without knocking. She didn't look at me. She didn't acknowledge the investors. She walked straight to the front of the room, picked up the presentation remote from the table beside me, and turned off my slides. The screen went dark. "We're going with my concept instead," she said, completely calm, like she'd just decided to change the lunch order. The room went quiet in that specific way rooms go quiet when nobody knows what the protocol is. I looked at Gerard. He leaned back in his chair and gave a small nod, not a surprised nod, a prepared one. That nod told me everything. The confusion on the investors' faces lasted about 10 seconds. Then Paige started presenting, and the diagrams that appeared on the screen looked very familiar to me because I had built every single one of them. Nobody interrupted. Nobody asked who she was or why she had just taken over. Within about 60 seconds, the investors were nodding. Adrian Weston stood up and started clapping. I stood at the side of the room with my hands still in the air where the remote had been. I waited long enough to make sure I wasn't misreading the situation. I wasn't. So I picked up my laptop bag, closed my computer, and said the only thing that felt right: enjoy the funding. I don't think anyone heard me. I walked out anyway. Paige Harlow had joined Nexagen about 8 months before that meeting. Her official title was Director of Strategic Innovation. Her actual reason for being there was something nobody said out loud, but everybody understood. She was Gerard's daughter, and Gerard was setting her up to eventually run the company. She had no background in molecular biology or pharmaceutical chemistry, but she became very interested in my research, and she became interested in it fast. The first few months, her questions were broad: market size, regulatory timelines, commercialization windows, standard executive-level curiosity. I answered everything without thinking much of it. Then the questions shifted. She started asking about the science, reaction timing, stabilization phases, the specific conditions under which a compound reached equilibrium versus when it degraded. These weren't market questions, these were lab questions. One afternoon, she stopped by my office. Could I review the technical documentation on the platform? I gave her access to the official reports in the company database. Organized, clean, presentation ready. A few days later, she came back. Could I also see the raw experiment logs and the lab notebooks? If that works, that one made me pause. Official reports are summaries. Lab notebooks are different. They contain the actual process. Failed runs, adjustments made mid-experiment, observations that only make sense in context after you've run the same procedure 200 times. There's no reason a director of strategic innovation needs lab notebooks unless she's trying to understand something the reports don't show, but I didn't push back. I figured she was genuinely trying to learn the science. I handed everything over. 3 nights later, I came back to the lab after hours. I'd left a set of samples out that needed to be refrigerated before the next morning. The building was mostly empty. When I reached my workstation, something felt off. One of my drawers was slightly open, my notebooks were inside, but the order wasn't right. Small thing, could have been nothing. But I'd been at this long enough to trust that feeling. So the next morning, I asked security to pull the corridor footage, 10 to 47 p.m. Paige walking directly to my workstation, opening the drawer. Spending 22 minutes going through my notebooks page by page. I watched it twice. Then I sat back in my chair and thought about what she had actually been looking for. The stabilization platform did not work from the formula alone. That was the part nobody outside the lab fully understood, including Paige. The compound only stabilized if a catalyst was introduced at a very precise moment in the reaction cycle. Too early, and the compound destabilized. Too late, and it degraded completely. The timing window was narrow, a few seconds in either direction, and the whole run failed. The charts in the official reports hinted at this, but they never explained it clearly because the adjustment was something you learned by doing, not by reading. You had to run the experiment hundreds of times before the pattern became instinct, before you knew in your gut when to introduce the catalyst without looking at the clock. I had that instinct. Nobody else at Nexagen did. And after watching that security footage, I understood exactly what Paige had been studying in those notebooks. She wasn't trying to learn the science in general. She was trying to find that specific step. The problem for her was that I had never written it down clearly. Not in the notebooks, not in the official reports. It existed in my head and in my hands and nowhere else. That night, I made 2 decisions. The first, I stopped writing anything related to catalyst timing in any document connected to Nexagen systems. If it wasn't already in writing, it was staying out of writing. The second, I opened my laptop and started filling out the paperwork to register Crestline Bioworks LLC. I had been thinking about it for a while. The notebook incident didn't create the idea, it just moved the timeline up. I found a small lab space across the city that I could rent month to month. I filed the incorporation documents that same week. 3 weeks before the investor meeting, Crestline Bioworks existed on paper, had a legal address, and had a rented bench with a reaction chamber I had been quietly assembling in my off hours. I didn't tell anyone. I just kept showing up to work at Nexagen every morning like nothing had changed. The morning after the investor meeting, I came back to the lab to clear out my desk. I wasn't planning to stay. There was nothing left to stay for. But the moment I walked into the research wing, I could tell something was wrong. The lab was too quiet. People were standing in small groups talking in low voices. A technician looked at me and immediately looked at the floor. One of the junior researchers came over. "Have you talked to Gerard yet?" "No." "Why?" He exhaled slowly. "We've been trying to reproduce yesterday's stabilization run since last night. It keeps failing." I looked across the lab. 2 technicians were resetting the reaction chamber. I watched from where I was standing. Temperature climbed to the right level. Catalyst introduced. For a moment, the readings looked normal. Then the monitor flashed red. Compound degradation detected. A technician swore under her breath. Someone said, "Run it again." They did. Same result. They ran it a 3rd time. Same result. That was when Gerard's voice cut through from the hallway. "Elliot." My office, he didn't sit down when we got there. He stood by the window for a moment, then turned around. "What exactly did you do to the stabilization process?" "I'm not sure what you mean. The team cannot reproduce your results." "The platform isn't working." Before I could answer, the office door opened and Paige stepped in. The confidence from the boardroom presentation was already gone. Something tighter had replaced it. "You sabotaged it," she said. She said it too fast, like she'd been rehearsing it. I looked at her. "Why would I do that?" "Because you're angry about yesterday." I didn't answer that. I turned back to Gerard. "The investors are coming back tomorrow morning," he said. "They expect a live demonstration." "I heard you the first time," I said. "I thought yesterday made things pretty clear." "You don't need my ideas anymore." Nobody said anything. I picked up my bag and walked out. Behind me, another reaction cycle failed. The alarm tone followed me down the hallway. That evening I went home, made coffee, and sat at the kitchen table going through the Crestline paperwork. Around 7 p.m., I heard a car outside. I looked through the window before opening the door. Black executive sedan on a residential street. Gerard, I let him in. He stood in the middle of my living room and got straight to the point. The stabilization platform was developed inside Nexagen's facilities on company time with company resources. The technology belongs to the company. "So that's why you drove over here." "The investors are coming back tomorrow morning. They expect a working demonstration." He paused. "You're the only one who understands the process adjustments." I leaned against the counter. "Science isn't a slide deck, Gerard. You can't copy a diagram and expect the chemistry to cooperate." His voice shifted. If you attempt to take that technology anywhere else, Nexagen will pursue legal action, aggressively. I walked to the kitchen table and turned my laptop toward him. On the screen was the Crestline Bioworks LLC Certificate of Incorporation. Filed 3 weeks ago, it's mostly paperwork right now, I said. A legal shell and a rented lab, but the research is mine. Gerard stared at the screen. He looked at it for a long time without saying anything. Then he looked up at me, and for the first time since he'd walked through the door, he didn't look like someone who had already figured out how the conversation was going to end. He left about 20 minutes later. I watched the sedan pull away from the curb, then I picked up my phone and called Adrian Weston. It rang 4 times before he picked up. His voice was careful, neutral. Mr. Vance, Adrian, I know this is an unusual call. A pause. It's an unusual situation. I'm not calling to complain about what happened yesterday. I'm calling because the demonstration tomorrow morning is not going to go the way your team expects. Another pause. Longer this time. What are you saying exactly? I'm saying the platform works, I can show you that it works, but not inside Nexagen's lab. I let that sit for a second. If you want to see the real thing, bring your own independent engineer to the demo tomorrow. Someone with no connection to Nexagen. Don't tell them I called. The line was quiet long enough that I thought he might say no. Then, where should we meet after? I'll text you the address in the morning, understood. That was the whole conversation. I hung up, finished my coffee, and went to bed. The investors arrived at Nexagen the next morning exactly as scheduled. I wasn't there, but I heard about it in detail later from someone still working inside the building. Paige had spent the night preparing. She had printed new slides, reorganized the lab stations, and briefed the technicians on how she wanted the demonstration to run. From what I was told, she looked confident walking into the research wing that morning. She had the room set up the way she wanted it. She had the investors seated. She had everything except the one thing that actually made the process work. Adrian arrived with the same 5 investors from the day before, plus 2 additional partners from Greystone who had not been at the original meeting. Paige had apparently asked Gerard to invite them. She wanted a larger audience for the live demonstration. She wanted to make a statement. That decision made the failure significantly more public than it needed to be. Adrian also brought a third-party engineer, a woman named Dr. Lena Portis, who worked independently and had no connection to Nexagen or Greystone's portfolio. Nobody in the room knew why she was there. Adrian introduced her as a technical consultant and left it at that. Paige started the demonstration. The compound entered the reaction chamber. Temperature increased on schedule. The stabilization cycle initiated. The readings on the monitor looked exactly the way they were supposed to look for the first 2 minutes. Clean, steady, tracking perfectly. Then came the moment where the catalyst needed to be introduced. The automated system triggered at its preset interval. On paper, that interval was close to correct. In practice, it was off by a few seconds. Not enough for anyone in the room to notice the difference by looking at a clock, but enough for the chemistry to notice. The stabilization curve dipped. Then, instead of flattening, it continued to fall. The monitor flashed red. Compound degradation detected. A technician leaned in and reset the system. Paige said something about environmental variables and asked them to run it again. The second attempt produced the same result. So did the third. Dr. Portis had been standing near the back of the room taking notes on a tablet. After the third failure, she walked closer to the monitor and studied the readout for a moment without saying anything. Adrian finally spoke. "Could you walk us through the timing of the catalyst introduction?" Paige answered steadily. "The compound reaches equilibrium following catalyst exposure. The system manages the sequencing automatically. What determines the exact threshold for that adjustment?" A pause, short, but the room noticed it. "It's built into the automated parameters." Dr. Portis looked up from her tablet and glanced at Adrian. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. Gerard stepped forward and said something about live systems being sensitive to environmental conditions, that this was exactly why demonstrations were valuable, that the team would have everything dialed in for a follow-up session. He said it smoothly. He'd probably said versions of that sentence 100 times in his career. But the investors had just watched the same process fail 3 times in a row. The 2 additional partners Paige had invited to make the event feel bigger were now sitting in a room where the technology had publicly not worked. Twice more than if she had kept the original guest list. Adrian looked at the monitor one more time. Then he picked up his jacket and said he appreciated Nexagen's time. The meeting ended 40 minutes earlier than scheduled. My phone buzzed at 11:52 a.m. "Where are you right now?" Adrian asked. "At the lab, the other one. We'll be there in an hour." I had texted him the address that morning as promised. The rented space was on the industrial side of the city, about 20 minutes from Nexagen's building. No corporate signage, no reception desk. The front door opened directly into the lab. Concrete floors, fluorescent lighting, the faint smell of chemical solvents that never quite leaves a working lab space no matter how well you clean it. I had been using the space on evenings and weekends for the past several weeks, partly to assemble the equipment and partly to run quiet verification tests on my own. I knew the reaction chamber was reliable. I knew my results were reproducible. I had run the stabilization sequence enough times in that room that the 4-second delay had become as automatic as breathing. Adrian arrived with all 7 investors, and Dr. Portis. They walked in, looked around the room briefly, and then looked at me. Nobody made a comment about the space. These were people who understood that a rented bench in an unglamorous building could produce results that a glass-walled boardroom could not. The process you saw this morning can work, I said. I want to show you why it didn't. One of the newer investors crossed his arms. You have the same equipment here, close enough to demonstrate the critical variable. Dr. Portis stepped closer to the reaction chamber and examined the setup. She asked 2 technical questions. I answered both. She nodded and stepped back. The compound entered the chamber. Temperature began to climb. The stabilization cycle started. The readings tracked exactly as they had in Nexagen's lab up until the point that mattered. The automated trigger fired at the preset interval. I waited 4 seconds past it. Then I introduced the catalyst manually. On the monitor, the stabilization curve dipped slightly, the same small dip as always, and then it flattened. The degradation signal dropped to 0 and stayed there. Stable compound confirmed. No alarm, no red flash, no reset. Dr. Portis was already writing on her tablet. Adrian stared at the screen. Run it again, he said. I ran it again. Same result. The curve dipped, flattened, held. Stable compound confirmed. Dr. Portis looked up from her tablet. One more time. I want to watch the manual adjustment. I ran it a 3rd time. She stood directly beside me at the chamber, eyes on the monitor, watching the automated trigger fire and then watching me wait. 4 seconds. Then the catalyst introduction. Then the curve. She made a note and stepped back without saying anything. But the way she stepped back told me everything I needed to know about what she was writing down. Adrian closed the data window on the monitor and turned to face the room. So the platform works. Yes, and Nexagen's team couldn't reproduce this today. I didn't answer that directly. I just said the process requires a specific manual adjustment at a precise point in the cycle. That adjustment was never documented in any of the materials Nexagen has access to. Adrian looked at me for a long moment. Then he looked at Dr. Portis. She nodded once. The investors stayed for another 45 minutes. They weren't taking my word for anything. They pulled the raw data from the reaction logs, compared the stabilization curves against the readings from the Nexagen demo that morning, and ran 2 additional verification tests themselves with Dr. Portis managing the controls. Every result came back the same way. By the time they finished, the mood in the room had shifted completely. They had walked in skeptical and cautious. They walked out with a different problem entirely, which was figuring out what to do next. Adrian was the last one to leave. He stood by the door for a moment. Thank you for showing us this, he said. Then, after a pause, this changes the conversation significantly. I'll be in touch tomorrow. I locked up the lab and drove home. That evening, Greystone Capital sent a formal message to Nexagen's executive office. The language was direct. Until Nexagen could demonstrate that it actually controlled the stabilization platform and could reproduce its results independently, the $2.6 billion commercialization agreement was suspended pending further review. I wasn't in that building when the message arrived, but I heard later that the word suspended hit the executive floor like a fire alarm. Gerard called an all-hands with the senior leadership team within the hour. By that evening, the board had convened an emergency session. The questions they were asking were not comfortable ones. How had the lead scientist behind the platform walked out the day before the investor demonstration? Why couldn't the team reproduce results that had been presented as verified and ready? And most importantly, who actually controlled the underlying technology? Nobody had clean answers to any of those questions. Word of the failed demonstration spread through biotech investment circles faster than Nexagen's communications team could manage. Not publicly, not in the press, but in the private conversations that happened between partners at firms who talk to each other. Enough people had heard enough that other investors started asking questions, the kind of questions that don't go away once they've been asked. By the following morning, the board had made 2 decisions. The first, Paige Harlow's access badge was deactivated. No announcement, no press release. She was Director of Strategic Innovation on Monday. By Tuesday, she could not get through the front door of the research wing. The second decision took until end of day. Gerard Harlow submitted his resignation as CEO. The official statement described it as a planned leadership transition intended to restore investor confidence and position the company for its next phase of growth. Everyone in the industry read it correctly. Adrian called me the next morning at 8:15. "Are you available to meet this afternoon?" We sat down at 2 p.m. in a conference room at Greystone's downtown office. Clean space, quiet floor, nothing like the polished boardroom at Nexagen. Adrian came alone. No investment committee, no lawyers, just him and a folder on the table. He got straight to it. "The situation with Nexagen has changed substantially. Their board is in crisis management mode and the deal as originally structured is finished," he paused. "But our interest in the technology hasn't changed." He slid the folder across the table. Inside was a term sheet. At the top of the page was the name Crestline Bioworks LLC. "We're prepared to fund the first full development round," he said. "Enough capital to move the stabilization platform through clinical stage trials. If the data holds at that stage, the commercialization pathway is the same one we came to Nexagen for." He didn't say the number out loud, he didn't need to. The term sheet had it in plain text, $2.6 billion in projected commercialization value, with Greystone leading the initial funding round to get there. Same opportunity. Different company on the cover page. I read through the term sheet slowly. Adrian sat across from me and didn't rush it. When I looked up, he said one more thing. "Dr. Portis submitted her assessment this morning. Her conclusion was that the stabilization process is not replicable without the specific manual adjustment you demonstrated. She also noted that this adjustment does not appear in any of the documentation Nexagen provided to us over the past 6 months." He paused. "I want you to know that assessment is part of the formal record now." I nodded. I picked up the pen he had placed beside the folder. "Before I sign anything," I said, "I need to make 4 phone calls. Adrian looked at me tonight, this afternoon. There are 4 people I want to bring with me when we start this. They're still at Nexagen right now, and I'd like to offer them a reason to leave before I finalize anything." He considered that for a moment. Then he leaned back in his chair. "Take the time you need. The term sheet doesn't expire until Friday." I left Greystone's office at 3 p.m. and sat in my car for about 10 minutes before I made the first call. His name was Ray Dodson. He had been a senior technician at Nexagen for 6 years. He was the first person I'd hired when I took the lead scientist role, and he was one of the 4 people standing in the lab the morning everything failed, watching the monitor flash red and saying nothing because he had a mortgage and 2 kids finishing college and couldn't afford to say the wrong thing to the wrong person. I did not hold that against him. I had been that person myself at different points in my career. You make the calculation you have to make. His phone rang twice. "Elliot, Ray, you got a few minutes?" "Yeah, I'm in the parking lot actually. Been sitting here since the board meeting ended." I heard it didn't go well, a short laugh. That's one way to put it. A pause. "They revoked Paige's access this morning. Gerard's gone by end of day. The whole floor is just waiting to see what comes next." "I might be able to answer that question," I said. "I'm starting something. Crestline Bioworks. We signed with Greystone this afternoon. Silence on the line. I want you to come with me," I said. "Same role, better terms, and you'd be the first one through the door." He didn't answer immediately. I heard him exhale slowly. "How soon? As soon as you can give notice." "I'll call you back in an hour," he said. He called back in 22 minutes. I made the other 3 calls that evening. Donna Ashcraft, who had been running analytical equipment at Nexagen for 4 years and knew the reaction systems better than anyone except me. Pete Calloway, a junior researcher who had caught errors in the data logs twice in the past year that would have set us back months if they'd gone unnoticed. And Carol Stein, who had been in pharmaceutical research for longer than I had, and whose instincts I trusted more than most instruments in the building. All 4 said yes before I finished explaining the offer. I think 2 of them said yes before I finished explaining the opportunity. They were the first people to walk through the door of the Crestline lab the following Monday morning. Ray brought coffee for everyone. Carol showed up with a box of her own equipment she'd been storing at home for years. Pete helped me unpack a new centrifuge that had arrived over the weekend. Donna spent the first 2 hours recalibrating the reaction chamber to her own specifications, which were better than mine. By noon, we were running verification tests. By 3 p.m., we had clean results across the board. It felt like the first day of something instead of the last day of something else. About 10 days after that, I was reviewing data at one of the lab benches when I heard the front door open. Footsteps on the concrete floor. I looked up. Paige Harlow was standing in the doorway. She looked different from the person who had walked into that boardroom and taken the remote out of my hand. The certainty she had carried like a coat was gone. She looked like someone who had spent 10 days figuring out what to do next and hadn't landed on an answer yet. I waited. "I heard you're building something here," she said. "We are." She looked around the lab, at Ray adjusting an instrument near the back wall, at Donna reading a printout at the far bench, at the equipment that had gone from a rented chamber to a functioning research operation in less than 2 weeks. "My father stepped down yesterday," she said. "Officially, I know." She was quiet for a moment. Then she asked the question she had clearly come to ask. Did you plan all of this? I thought about that for a second before I answered. No, I said. What I planned was protecting the work I spent 3 years building. Everything else followed from that. She stood there for a moment longer. Then she gave a small nod, the first time I had ever seen her respond to something without having a follow-up ready. She turned and walked back out the door. Ray looked over at me from across the room. I shook my head slightly. He went back to what he was doing. That afternoon, Greystone confirmed the first funding tranche had cleared. Adrian sent a one-line message. Doctor, Portis is available to consult on the clinical trial design whenever you're ready. I wrote back, Monday works. Here's what I want to say to anyone reading this who has been in that room, not the boardroom with the glass walls and the polished table. The other room, the one where someone younger or better connected or carrying the right last name walked in and took something that belonged to you, and the people around you let it happen. And you stood there doing the math on whether it was worth fighting. You already know the answer. The work is yours. The knowledge is yours. Nobody can take what actually lives in your hands and your head, no matter what they put on a slide or copy onto a USB drive. Protect it. Document your ownership early. And when the moment comes, do not wait for someone else to tell the truth. Show it yourself. In a room with no logo on the door, if that is what it takes. The platform works. It always worked. They just needed to be in the right room to see it.